Good morning and welcome to Bite-Sized Conversations with Jenni Walke. And normally my digital BFF, Kylie Mowbray Allen, is with me, but unfortunately she is not able to join us. She's a little under the weather today. So you've just got me today. Before we start, I wanted just to acknowledge that it's the last day of Reconciliation Week and to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and tell you I'm coming from Turrbal country in southeast Queensland. As a Bundjalung woman, I'm very excited to have had this week of Reconciliation Week and to share stories with you for the people I've joined. So I'm a little bit flustered without Kylie here. She obviously keeps me a little grounded, doesn't she? Today we're talking about pricing, and it's part 3 of our conversation about pricing. So normally we talk a little bit and keep one topic every week, but this conversation around pricing is something that has been asked about us a lot. And both Kylie and myself, as coaches with our own clients, and also then working with each other as mentoring each other, we talk about what we should price and how we should price our products, and when's the right time to price, and what's the impact of it when we change our pricing. So last week we talked about product-based businesses and how you determine your pricing and when's a really good time, and how you communicate that with your clients to change your price. And so this week we're talking about service-based businesses. So service-based businesses like myself as a coach or a consultant, like the services that Kylie does with a program where we're doing some coaching and we're delivering our IP or our knowledge with our clients, is really what we're talking about, service-based businesses. And with service-based businesses, there's generally no fixed cost other than obviously your technology and maybe the office that you're in, but there's no other costs of doing business in terms of product development. So we don't really price our product based on the cost of delivery. What we're pricing our product on is based on the value. So it's the value and benefit of the content and the impact that we make through the service that we provide. So in Kylie's case, as a digital marketer, then her advice and her knowledge is around delivery of social media, the use of or how to build your SEO, how to build really functional websites that engage your clients, and how to get visible online. So she's sharing her knowledge and her services in that way, and then her clients actually get to listen, but participate in that conversation, learn from her, and then on occasion, Kylie's team will actually do the work for you. So it's a service-based business. Now, traditionally, service-based businesses were done at what they call time for service. So think hairdresser, where you're actually getting paid per hour or per delivery of the service. Whereas these days, we've started to shift away from a per product basis or per service basis or per hour basis. And the reason we do that is because often the time it takes to deliver the service doesn't necessarily quite equate to the value and impact it's going to give. And if you think about that, a lawyer is a really great example. A lawyer has taken all this years and time to become a lawyer. They have the knowledge and the expertise that's quite limited, quite unique, and not everyone has that knowledge. So it's in demand. So they're not going to charge you necessarily for the time, although they do a time for service, but they're charging you for the value. So when you're paying $400 or $700 or $800 plus an hour for a lawyer, you're paying for the value that they're giving you. You're paying for the knowledge that you don't have yourself. And so the same applies to coaches and other service providers. So one of the big questions I often get is, how do I price my products if I'm a service-based business? If I am selling my IP, if I'm selling what I do, how do I know what's the right price? So it's a really interesting question, because the answer is there is no right price. And I know that's probably not the answer that people watching want to hear, but the reality is when it comes to pricing, what we're looking at is the value and benefit that it gives your client, and also what it's trying to give you as a business owner. So if you have a mission to be the most accessible coach or the most accessible service provider in your industry, then you might choose to have a low-cost product. You might choose to undercut all your competitors so that you're actually meeting a particular part of the market that doesn't have access to high capital or funds to pay for the service, but still wants to get the value. So you might make that as a choice. But by choosing to be the lowest cost product, the lowest cost service, then you have to trade that off with the maximum amount of revenue that you can get. So when you're looking at your pricing, the question is, what are you trying to achieve through your business or service? And how does the pricing of your product relate to that? As an example, if I wanted to earn $50,000 a year for revenue, but I also want to be the lowest cost product, I have to recognize that to earn $50,000 revenue at lowest cost, I'm going to have to sell more of my services. Now, that's either me servicing, or I'm going to have an extra team who can deliver that service for me so it can meet that revenue market. If I wanted to have the same amount of revenue, so 50,000, but was at the middle or the high end of the market, obviously reduces the number of times I need to deliver my service. So your pricing actually has to relate to what your goal of your business is. It's not just about pricing for the sake of pricing. And often I see businesses get into that problem where they choose their price first and then wonder why they can't meet their expenses or meet their revenue targets. It's because they've priced based on an idea of what it should cost, or what their competitors are, or what they think the market can pay, versus an actual discussion around what am I trying to achieve. So I'm hoping that's making sense to those who are watching and listening to us today, and thank you for joining us if you are. So when we're pricing for services, the first question we want to ask is, what are we trying to achieve with the business from a revenue perspective or an impact perspective? And then how does it relate to what I'm actually delivering? So if you've got a product that's a really simple product to deliver that might take you 10 or 15 minutes or 20 minutes, you might decide that you want to have that as a low cost entry point because it's quick and easy and it's a great access point for people to your business. But if you do have that entry point, it's always good to have a second level of pricing, a second price point. And the reason that is it gives continuity for your client and consistency. They come in at a low price point, and then the next product that they offer, which will be a little bit more detailed, a little bit greater time potentially to deliver and maybe worth more in terms of value, is their next step in their journey with you. So they don't just come in and out on one service. Because often with service-based businesses, we want continuity. We want consistency with our clients. We don't want someone to come in, buy our product once and leave. We really want clients and customers to stay with us. And so that's where we're looking at our pricing model to say, I want to continue to have the engagement with our client. Now, last week, Kylie used the example of a health provider like a naturopath or a chiropractor or a physio who's delivering their service. And what happens if they're delivering their service at $100 a session, and then all of a sudden they decide that they need to change it to $150? And how do they actually manage that change? Well, the first thing is you probably wouldn't want to jump from $100 to $150 because you will definitely lose clients, unless that's what you're trying to achieve. Now, I know that sounds a bit strange, but if you're a service provider and realize that you can serve less clients with more time and actually get a greater impact with less clients on your books, then perhaps raising your prices significantly means that the clients, you're going to attract a particular group of clients, but there'll be less of them. You may actually still get the same revenue outcome, but your work effort is lower. So one of the few times that you would actually jump your prices up significantly is if you're actually trying to reduce the number of clients that you have. And it is actually a strategy for people, particularly towards the end of their service career, if they're looking to downsize, if they're looking to actually move towards retirement and actually want to reduce the number of hours that they offer their services. But for an average person, most businesses, if you like, if you want to actually do an incremental price increase, the way you do it is important to do it over time. And it's actually to signal to the market that you're changing, you've improved your services, you're becoming more experienced, and your price point then reflects that. A really great example is when you go to a chiropractor or a physio, and even a hairdresser actually, and they have different levels of pricing. So for a junior or a new graduate out of school, it might be priced at $90 a session. And then someone with 3 to 5 years experience might be priced at $110. And then a principal or a senior might be priced at $150 to $170. And the reason they do those price points because it's recognizing the additional experience that you get over time. And that's a really good way to price it if you're a service provider, to have different levels of price point depending on the experience of the person you're working with. Now, even if you're a brand new business and you only have 1 or 2 people working for you, you can still actually set your price model up like that from the start. Even if you don't have anyone at that junior level or that senior level in your business, you might be at that mid-level experience. You can actually price yourself as let's say a senior consultant. And then as you build your experience, you can shift your price to the next level up, which might be a principal consultant or a management consultant. Even though you may only have you or one other person in the business, you can actually signal to the market that your experience is growing by actually setting your fees when you start based on experience level. What that also does is that when you have new people join your business, there's an expectation that they're going to start at that junior level and they're going to work their way up from a junior to a senior to maybe a management or principal consultant. So that movement in your pricing actually enables you to do that. So when we're thinking about pricing, it's a constant conversation around what are we trying to achieve? What does the market want from us? But also, what does it mean to the way that we engage our clients? I hope that's making sense. It's a little strange doing these conversations when it's just me talking to myself and you guys on the video and those who've joined us on the Zoom. So the key aspect for service pricing, as I've said, is one, make sure it meets the need of your business. So what are we trying to achieve, and making sure that if you only want to work 50 hours a week and you have a particular revenue or output target that you want, your 50 hours a week of time or service need to be able to achieve that. So you need to price accordingly to that. If you're looking to shift and change your pricing, we need to look at, are you signaling a change in experience, in which case then you might change your title with that at the same time. Or are you signaling to the market that you're actually trying to reduce the number of clients and you only want a boutique number and a very specific number of clients so that you can give them more time and keep the same revenue. That would allow a large jump in your pricing change, knowing that you're going to reduce your client numbers. If you are a service provider and wanting incremental change over time, then it's about saying, well, when is the right time to do that? Now, often people do it in June or December at the end of year or end of financial year, but I find that a little challenging sometimes because there's no real reason to do it in either June or at the end of the year, other than from an accounting perspective. So what I would suggest is that you decide when is the season for your business to change its pricing. It might be that every quarter you look at your pricing and you say, actually, every quarter we're going to do an incremental price increase. That's quite small. So over the year, I might want to change my consulting rate or my hourly rate or my service delivery by $100 by the end of the year per person. So I might choose to do 4 small incremental changes, because on a client as a consulting or service provider, you may not notice that small increment. But again, you can also signal that through communicating with your clients by saying, hey guys, I've been sitting at the same price for 10 years or 5 years or 3 years even, and it's now time for us to do a review. So rather than doing one large jump, we're actually going to do incremental changes over the next year, and then we'll be stable for a number of years. So or you might want to grandfather people in or grandmother people in, if you like, on existing pricing. So new people pay the higher price and your existing clients pay the lower price. And often that's very common for businesses to do that, because then they're actually rewarding loyalty for those who are with them on the journey, and they come in a particular price, and then the new people pay the slightly higher price. And you might have a 2 or 3 year freeze on existing clients for their pricing, or you might actually just say for the rest of your time with me, this is the price you pay. And so there's lots of different ways to approach pricing, but the key thing to remember, and I'll come back to my very first point, is that it needs to meet the needs of your business and your revenue goals or your output goals or your impact goals. Because if it doesn't connect with why you're in business and your outcomes you're trying to achieve, pricing becomes just an arbitrary thing that you can pluck out of the air. And sometimes that works for you and sometimes it doesn't. So that's an internal perspective, right? So the next thing I just wanted to share with you is around how you look at it when you're in the market. So if you're very new to business and you don't even know what to charge and you're still at that very, very new space, the best thing to do is have a look at to see what the market is charging. And I would look at a range of providers, and if you can, 6 to 10 providers is ideal. I know that seems like a lot, but when you get 6 to 10 providers who are in your market providing the same service, it gives you a very clear benchmark about what the market will bear. And what I mean by that is that what is the market willing to pay for your service, or for a service like yours? So you might identify that there's a range. It might be, I'm going to pick arbitrary figures here, it might be between $500 and $1,200 for the service that you provide in the market. So then what we want to look at then is saying, well, based on that $500 to $1,200, what are the differences in the service being delivered? Are there any substantive differences in the way the service is being provided? Now, I mean by that experience, what they give you, so the output or the impact that it's going to have on you. Do you get more things for the higher price than you do for the less price? Is it more experience at the higher price than the less price? Or is it part of their marketing strategy? Is the people at $600 or $700 saying, we're providing you the greatest service, but a lower price because we're trying to actually pull clients away from that higher end provider? So when you're looking at an external marketing or external context review, what you're looking at is saying, let's look at between 6 to 10 companies. Let's look at the spread of fees that they're charging, and let's see where we feel that we sit in the market. Now, you might want to come in at the high end of the market, and that's perfectly great. And if you can do that, awesome. But you just need to make sure that your marketing and your communication around why you're at the higher end is very clear. And this is where we start to look at what your point of difference is. So if you're at the high end of the market, why should they hire you? Why should they work with you? And what is your point of difference that's going to make them keep coming back? If you're at the mid-range of the market, it's a different conversation. It's saying, well, I'm mid-range, so it's probably where loads of people sit on a natural bell curve. And if we're sitting at that middle part of the market, then well, how am I going to differentiate myself out of this pool, this larger pool of businesses? How do I still, what's my value differentiating here? But it won't be about price. It'll be about what I'm delivering. It'll be about the unique skills that you bring or your unique perspectives in that middle of the market. At the lower end of the market, what we're talking about is that budget range, and that budget end of the market, or the lower price point end of the market. And that's a question of whether you want to come in and say, I am the lowest price and therefore the greatest value. So then you need to have, again, look at what the services you're providing for that. Or you can simply say that we're new, we're young in the market, so we're coming in at a low price to build loyalty. And what that gives you is scope to grow. So you just also have to remember that your prices can't stay stable forever. You need to continually review your prices. At a minimum, the average for the market is between 5 and 10% increases on a service-based business every year, up to the kind of cap of your market. So if you're at the top end of the market, then you have to recognize that your price increases are probably going to be a lot less than if you're at the lower end of the market in terms of pricing. So when you're looking at your pricing strategy, which can get quite complex, but in actual fact is pretty simple, what will the market bear? Where do you sit in that market? What's your differentiator? And what's going to make you stand out at whichever end of the market you're at? And then how does that fit with your long-term strategy about growth for your business? So we start at the middle range, we have place to grow. If you're at the bottom end, if you're in the middle, you're I guess with the most of the market. So how do you differentiate yourself and maybe incrementally change that? And if you're at the top end of the market, how do you stay there? How do you continue to put, what's your continued point of difference of how you're going to continually be able to charge that higher end? So how do you improve your services, become more efficient, create greater impact, or provide better value at that price? I hope that makes sense for everyone who's listening today. So we're talking about the differences between pricing. And so when we're talking about service pricing, we have an internal review of pricing. So based on my revenue, based on what I want to achieve, versus an external review about pricing a product based on what the market will bear. And to an extent, when you're doing your pricing policy, you actually need to do both. You need to look at what the cost that you need to offer to be able to pay your bills and reach your goals for your business. But you also need to marry that with what the market will bear and how much they wish or they are likely to pay for you. So I think it's probably, I've had a very large conversation about pricing. There's a lot of information in there. So if you are interested in pricing, I do recommend you go back and listen to our first, second, and then probably this third podcast today to talk around the different ways of pricing. The key and most important thing to remember is there is no correct or right answer for pricing. What's right is what fits for your business. It has to relate to what you need for your business, what your clients are going to gain out of it, and how that sits in the market. So there's no really one answer for that. It could be, and this is a really great example when you look at things like donuts or coffee or any of those things that are in demand products. People will pay $1 at 7-Eleven for a coffee, but they'll also pay $6.50 for a coffee at Starbucks. So there's such a breadth in experience, and it shows you that it's not just about the cost of the product that matters, it's how you market it, how you position it, and also the value that you're bringing people, those intangible things that you're bringing when you're talking about pricing. It's not always just about the cost or the value in terms of dollars. It comes down to how it's going to make your client feel or your customer feel, how they're going to change, how this is going to benefit their life. As I said, Coffee is a really great example for that. Consulting is a great example. Even masseuses are a great example for that. You can get a masseuse at $40 an hour. That might be a phenomenal masseuse, but you can also pay $200 an hour and have an equally good massage. So sometimes it's not about the price that determines the quality, but it's how you position it and how you make your customer feel that will determine whether they're going to come back and continue to buy from you, or whether they're actually going to move on and find someone else to provide that service or product for. So I hope that's been of service and value to you today. It's only a short podcast today because it's just me talking. And we're going to jump off and have a chat to the people who joined us on Zoom. So thank you very much for that. And if you would like to chat to us next week, we'd love to talk to you. Hopefully Kylie will be back and back out of bed and not feeling so unwell as she is this week. So big loves and kisses to Kylie, and I hope you get better soon. For those who want to connect with Kylie, please reach out to her at hellomedia.team and hellomedia.dreamteam on Instagram. We'll put all the links in the groups, as you know, all the links to the podcast. If you'd like to connect with me, I'm Jenni Walke from Elephant in the Room Consulting, and you can find us at Elephant in the Room AU on Insta and Facebook. Reach out, connect, book a call, join our groups. We'd love to connect with you and talk more about pricing. I hope it's been of value today, and thank you so very much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next time for Bite-Sized Conversations. Thanks, guys.